Hi there. I'm Eileen Caroscio. I am a nurse, a coach, an author, and a consultant, and I help people in midlife and beyond. I just had a fabulous, dynamic, and engaging conversation with host Kim Sorrelle. We talked about a subject that's very close to my heart, which is midlife and beyond, and all the possibilities, infinite possibilities that exist on that continuum. And I hope that you find this episode helpful to you because there's a lot of things that can happen in midlife and beyond. And there's a lot of resilience that you can build and connection. So enjoy the episode. And Kim, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you for your wonderful heart, the heart to heart conversation. And enjoy and thank you. God bless.
Welcome to the show. I'm so happy that you're here. You are going to be so happy you are here. I'm Kim Sorrelle. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I just got to speak at the UN. That was so fun. I get to do a lot of fun things in life. And one of my favorite, actually, my absolute favorite thing to do is to meet people. And I get to meet some extraordinary, wonderful people. And today, you're going to meet my new friend, Eileen, who has turned what can be a really hard time in somebody's life into something really great, which she did with a tragedy in her own life, and how it shaped her and created what she's doing now today, and what she's been doing for several years and transformed into what she's doing today is remarkable. And you get to hear the whole story. So let's dive in. Eileen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kim, and thanks for the invite. I'm glad to have a conversation about what's close to my heart, which is midlife and beyond, and all the possibilities that exist on there. Because it's a great, invitation to like reflect on the past life and what we like to do ahead, and redirect our energies, and build resilience, and build community. So all of those good things.
Yeah. I know it's going to be so fun to talk about all of that. I want people to get to know you personally. So I would first like to hear about 8-year-old Eileen.
Wow, 8 years old. That's a very thoughtful and deep question. Um, so I would say that I'm thankful that I was a carefree kid. I was a happy kid. I was a curious kid, much to my mother's patience with me when I would ask people about themselves and ask them a lot of questions. I was just curious. I loved people. Why did they choose this? Why is that important to them? Um, and then we were uh, what I want to say, we went to a Catholic school. We were brought up Catholic. So the values of, being kind, helping others were really important to us, embedded in our life. It's a tapestry that stays with me my whole life and is part of who I am, my DNA. Um, I I had I guess a wonderful childhood, and then I had great parents and sisters. We did fun things. My dad, which I thought was healthy, and I would be with us like forever as a kid. He died suddenly, had a heart attack. And I found him. It was very heartbreaking. I couldn't save him. Um, and
How old were you?
I was probably about 17 years old. I
You found him.
I found him. So um, it's interesting because usually I would wake him up for time, for work. So the day before, I, woke him up, and it seemed like it took him a while to like, wake up. And I said, Dad, wake up. And I was like, oh my God, is he okay? And then he woke up, and I was thinking, well, maybe he was just in a deep sleep. And so the next day, same thing, Dad, wake, my mom said, well, go, wake up Dad. And I'd wake up Dad, and I couldn't wake him up. And he felt cool to me. Um, and so I knew that, he had passed, but it was devastating because then I couldn't tell my mom that he had died. So I just said, Dad won't wake up. We need to call. I called the emergency people. Um, but that was devastating to me. I mean, I love my dad. He was Just to give you an idea of him, he loved gardening. Both my parents loved to be out in the garden. We had, like vegetables. We had, he had this thing with like the beauty. He'd have like a flowering plants. We had Rosa Sharon. He'd get roses for my mom. Just a beautiful backyard. He wanted to get pistachios one time. He said, "Let's walk down to the department store." It was called Landsberg's at the time. Maybe you had one near you. And I said, "Well, as much as I want to, I can't because I have a pet." He goes, "What pet? What pet do you have?" But there was these beautiful like crabapple trees, and I had a caterpillar. And he says, "Well, bring your friend, let's go and get the pistachio." So he was just a fun dad. So I have a lot of good memories about my dad. So I just thought, well, life is short. I just presumed that, he'd live for a long time, weddings and children and all of that. And then I also thought, he was joyful. He was a happy guy. And I thought, that's important that he was happy. Um, and but I over prepared. I was always afraid, something would happen, like kind of double checked things. Is this person okay? Is that person okay? But anyway, to make a long story shorter, I thought, well, at some point I would be a psychologist or I would be a journalist because I was so interested in people. I love people. Remember all those curious questions. But I decided no, I couldn't save my dad, and maybe I could save someone else's dad. So became a nurse, got a bachelor's, a master's, was CPR instructor, worked on medical, surgical, cardiac floor. I loved it. I just couldn't wait to get to the hospital and help people, get healthier and better. I wanted to educate them about heart disease and all of that. And then fast forward, 9/11 happened. And so I worked close to the Pentagon. And so 9/11 happened near the Pentagon. And so people were more interested in not only their health, but purpose and meaning and relationships with people. And I began to think more about that. How could I help people? Um, how could I help people holistically? And I put it on the back burner. I really didn't do anything about it. I was going also to school to get I think my master's at that time. But anyway, I was in my garden and I fell. I fell forward. I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did it, Kim. But I broke my right wrist. It was very painful and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't work. And so I began to kind of research. I found a magazine on coaching and consulting. And I thought, "Oh, I could do that. I could help people beyond, just the health, the physical health part. I could help them maybe in relationships or life purpose." And so I did. I got, certified 2 years in that, and I still worked at the hospital, after I wrist healed. But then I began to, enjoy this more. It was more fulfilling for me. And then I um, started my own company, Passageways Coaching. And then I was involved in a lot of things. I don't know, my glasses are heating up.
Well, let's backtrack a little bit
Yeah.
because you just delivered a lot of information. So it's interesting to me that you lose your dad. That had to be so awful. I lost my dad in 2016 and it was horrible. I adored that man. He was such a great man, and he he only died because he was in the Navy when he was younger. And so he slept underneath asbestos. And so
Um,
he had mesothelioma. Otherwise, I think that he would have lived forever. He was the Energizer Bunny, like always very healthy and always on the go and whatever. But it's a horrible cancer.
mhm.
And so anyway, but it was devastating. It was so hard losing my dad. It was so tough. And to lose a parent
Mm.
at such a young age, 17 is young. There are people listening, I'm sure, that have lost a parent at that age, even younger, slightly older, whatever. you mentioned you thought he'd be around for the weddings, for all the stuff, right? To see you graduate from college, and all of a sudden he's gone. And there is this loss of a dream of what you think your future is going to look like.
Mhm.
And he's going to be part of it. He'll be standing there. He'll be in the pictures.
Mhm.
He'll be proud. He'll be the happy guy. And it's hard losing that dream.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And you've had a lot of loss too. I mean, overwhelming loss with your husband and a lot of losses that you had with your mom. Just been kind of following you, and you're pretty amazing with how you moved forward with you. I think you had a kind of a developed a purpose from all of that.
Yeah, I think that's what happens, right? Like you get to decide. Like I feel like there's things that I can't control. I had no control over losing my mom, no control over losing my dad, my husband, no control. But the things I can control are things like how I live, how
Mhm.
I face life. The how I what do I bring to the world?
Mhm.
What do I see as my purpose? What do I see as a way to contribute to the world? What do I see as a way to honor my husband, even, just kind of all those things. And so you can either wallow and stay down and not use those tough times, or you can use those tough times to make the world a better place. And so you and I both decided to do that. I mean, you decided I couldn't save my dad, but if I'm a nurse, I can save other people, and which is so incredible, admirable. Especially, I know people who their parents or somebody they love, they had long-term illness. So they were
Mm.
working with the medical field a lot, right? They're working with nurses a lot, doctors and nurses, and that drove them to want to be in the medical field. With you, it was a sudden death, which what a wonderful way for your father to die. Not good timing, but
Mhm.
how incredible, right? I mean, everybody dreams of that, right? Go in your sleep.
Mhm.
But a hard way to leave people.
Mhm.
And so, but you didn't really deal with the medical personnel, but yet you were drawn to it. That I find that fascinating
Mm.
because I've not heard it that way before when it's so sudden like that.
Mhm.
And and like you felt a responsibility, like why couldn't I save my dad? I couldn't save him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to my roots of helping others and helping community and what's important. And although, being a journalist, you can ask people, how did this happen? How did this evolve? What was your part in it? Or, being a psychologist helping someone. But I just thought I can still ask those questions because that's what coaches do. We ask a lot of questions and help people figure out their path forward. Um, but yeah, I think that with my dad dying, I think that it was hard on the family because it was so sudden. But I think for my dad, what a way to go. Go in your sleep. I often thought, maybe he died of like sleep apnea because I had a difficulty, waking him the night before. So that's something that in terms of like educating people about, sleep apnea or getting tested for that if people are snoring. But yeah, I'm glad I made that choice. That was important to me. It was, fulfilling, and I'm still a nurse. So that's quite a few years of being nurse, but a different capacity. I don't work in the hospital, but I do consulting, health, wellness, and well-being. So I enjoy that.
Yeah, well, and in reading about you, I love everything that you just said. I mean, and as I've read about you and read things you've written and whatever, uh, one thing that I always think about with any medical personnel, but especially nurses, but kind of any first responder really, is that how do you not put up a wall? How do you not grow cynical? How do you just kind of keep it real, be passionate about every patient that you touch? Because you obviously were like, you cared so deeply. And I think most, if not all, nurses do. But I always think, man, when you see person after person after person, it could be hard. It could be easy to sort of put up a little bit of a wall to protect yourself from the pain of losing somebody again, or I
Mm.
don't know, whatever. Or if you see people come in with things that were preventable,
Mhm.
then I think, is it easy then to go, gosh, you kind of did this to yourself, buddy, or whatever. How do you keep it real? How do you keep it so human?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a second. It seemed easy to do. We all are in different places in our life, and so some of us know maybe things to eat or exercise, and some of us maybe have a lot, going on. So, I mean, there's no judgment on them. We all arrive at different places. Sometimes um, people have not, got the genetic lottery where all things are good. They have diabetes, so they're more prone to atherosclerosis, things that can put them at risk, obesity. There's a lot of different things. So there's no judgment on that. And so that's, easy for me. I think as a nurse is seeing some of the patients that came in repeatedly, we got to know them. And then if they passed away, I think that was hard for us. And sometimes it was helpful that we were so busy because we didn't have to like think about it. Um, but we had wonderful patients. I worked also on a floor later on that we took care of very well-to-do clients, people that were in um, maybe Hollywood and people that maybe were on TV. And so we could never talk about them. We can't, it's, their privacy. And that was, a good thing because how they show up on TV and how they show up in the hospital bed can be very different. And they're vulnerable. Um, just like anybody, else is, and being, kind and considerate um, to them. Um, I don't know. I think it just came from within Kim. Is just it was easy for me. So that's how I kept it real. And my colleagues and I, we enjoyed just working together. We were supportive. Um, I worked in a big hospital. It was like 915 beds as a teaching hospital. So we all supported each other and the patients. I did have a few patients that sometimes were rude to me. They had some challenging issues. Um, and so you couldn't take that personally. They were upset about their health condition. And so just knowing that, how would I be in that situation? Maybe I would be angry about my diagnosis or that type of thing. And I think just not taking things personally. I mean, I think we all do the best we can do. And sometimes we show up better, and sometimes not so good, but being okay that we try to do the best we can.
I
Uh-huh.
would imagine you get all kinds of patients, some very kind, some maybe not so kind. What was it like to deal with difficult people?
Yeah, that's an interesting question too. So for the most part, people were very thankful, very appreciative. Um, I would say maybe 97%. So we did get patients that were rude, and we didn't judge them because they had really difficult situations, going on. Um, some people with diabetes had multiple complications going on with dialysis, and I could imagine how frustrating that is, and also. If your electrolytes are off, that can affect your personality. So try not to, like say, like something obviously back to them that would mirror what they're saying to you, and never something like that. But I sometimes, you would have a deep sense of hurt because, here you're a little nurse and you're trying to do as much as can. You went to all this schooling, you have so much responsibility, you're wanting to do your best. And it's like, how can you say that to us? Uh, and thankfully there wasn't too many people, and sometimes people will apologize later, just said, I'm sorry, I was so stressed. And then you think back, well, did I ever, do something like, did I say something that maybe I didn't mean? I think we all maybe have situations like that, or maybe not to that extreme, but also that, we're all doing the best we can do, and maybe that they're having a really bad day and they have a lot of health issues. So yeah, there were some rude people and not as many that affected us and say, okay, I'm never going to be a nurse again. Just like, okay, we all have bad days, they're having a bad day, impacted my day, but we're going to move forward, and I just can't
Yeah.
get to heart.
That is a beautiful, that's a beautiful attitude, a beautiful way to look at it. Because I would imagine too, there's days that you would go to the hospital that you weren't having the greatest day. And other people working at the hospital as well. And so you have to do the job, even though your mind could easily be someplace else. And so it's a beautiful way to look at it. Yeah, people have hard days. It's true. I think about that, like when somebody cuts me off in traffic, or I'm trying to go down the aisle at the grocery store and it's clogged and nobody's moving, or you runs into you with their grocery cart. I just always think, well, I don't know what's going on in their life. Who knows what's going on in their life? They might have
Exactly.
just gotten horrible news. They might have just gotten a terrible diagnosis. They might be having issues in a relationship, right?
Yes.
So yeah, yeah,
I have to laugh, Kim, because I think that also. And so, when I was younger and I was, like drive my mom or dad around, or my mom, and, somebody would, cut me off, or be rude, or, and my mom would say, well, look at that, like, how can they do that? And I said, oh, they're probably, on their way, to something, or they're like like maybe something happened to them. Maybe they're racing to get to their son or their daughter, or, you know, something's happened. And so my mother would be like looking at me like, this person just was so rude to you and just cut you off, and what's the matter with you? Don't and so she she would like throw up her hands at me. But I found that that was my response. And people say, like, what world do you live in? And I said, I'm living in the same world you are. I find it better to think that um maybe they're having a bad day or something. Anyway, I feel better that way. I'm in traffic, like someone will say, well, you're letting all those cars in. I'm like, come on. I mean, like, I leave enough time to be there early. Um, and so, okay, come in. I just find that it's stressful if you respond other ways. So,
yeah. Well, kind of goes back to there's things you can control and things that you can't. And
right.
you don't control somebody else's attitude or somebody else's mood. You don't
Hmm.
you don't really control that, or
Hmm.
you shouldn't let their mood or attitude control you, I guess is even a better way of saying it, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you get to pick. If somebody says something mean or is grumpy or rude, you
Mhm.
can get mad if you want to and let your blood pressure rise and get the steam coming out of your ears and nose, and you can raise your voice, yell and scream, or you can go, that's on you. That's your attitude. It's not going to become mine. That's your
Exactly.
issue. It's not my issue. I'm not going to take on your demeanor right now. Right.
Exactly.
So
And so, in the hospital, a lot of some of the diseases and disorders were related to stress. High blood pressure can also be amount of salt and how much, overweight you had. But there was things that you could do to help bring someone's blood pressure down. So if someone cut you off, you can't light a Serenity a candle while you're, driving, but you can just say, like, just take a deep breath, like it inhale in, and then, kind of let it all out, just smoothly. And so, some people would say, "Oh yeah, right." And I said, "Look, okay, let's put the pulse oximeter on your hand that as, oxygen concentration, your heart rate, and your blood pressure cuff." And so I said, "Let's do some of these breathing exercises. It's backed by science. Let's just do it. So you can see for yourself, and you'd see the blood pressure go down. So it's effective. It can, work for you. So the next time you're, out there, you try it."
Breathe through it. Just breathe through it like you do labor, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
different situation for sure.
A little bit different.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what a great attitude. And yeah, I just feel the same. It's easy to let people kind of take over your life in that way. And
Hmm.
you don't have to let it.
Hmm.
The good news is you got a choice. You
Yeah.
don't have to buy into it. You don't have to let it. So,
Yeah.
and again, who knows what's going on with them. So here
Yeah.
you are, you're a nurse and then beautiful attitude toward people having a hard day. But you decided that nursing was great, but man, if you could coach, that would just be above and beyond, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then you just did it. Like some people dream of things. Some people will
Hmm.
think, oh my gosh, I would love to, whatever that fill in the blank is, but never do it. But you just did it. You
Hmm.
just, was it that easy for you? Like you decided one day, hey, I'm going to look into this. And then you just went for it?
Yeah, so that 9/11, had me thinking about how I could help other people. And remember, I was always interested in like psychology and, how do people move forward? I'm very goal oriented. So the health goals, but what about, like career goals or relationship goals or spirituality goals? Um, so I thought I had that time with my broken wrist that, I could kind of research this. And it was like, this is kind of like a good fit for me. So I was very motivated to do that. And it was exciting for me. And I think it just kind of fit me like a glove. It brought out my own like strengths and motivations to help people, because our well-being is of all the parts of it. It's not just physical health and how we are emotionally, how we are in our heart or spiritually. It impacts all of us. There's, like a whole sphere of things that, contribute to our well-being. So I guess it was easy for me. I was excited about it. I'm excited about that because although I didn't go that route, this route, I could still help people and still have a lot of knowledge and skills and experience where I could help people in health and, the physical health. But
Yeah.
I think helping them be resilient, getting over or getting through, their diagnosis or getting through something that they have to do, like a bandaging type of thing. There's a lot of things that happen to people, as you can realize and understand. But it's hard to sometimes adapt to all of those things.
Yeah, so true. So true. And I'm sure you are fantastic at it. It is interesting to me too that I feel like there's those moments when God kind of wants your attention, and finally hits you over the head,
Mhm.
and you falling, not even knowing how you fell and breaking your wrist, that
Yeah.
changed the trajectory of your life.
Mhm.
It was almost, sounds like almost one of those moments where God's like, hey, I have something different for you. So I need to lay you up for a little while so you can think about it and look into it.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was the worst thing that happened because there was a lot of pain that went with that. And I have a I have a high pain threshold. And I know they were when I was in the OR, they said, "Well, you're gonna have to go to surgery. They're gonna put, pins and wires." And I was like, "Oh no, I can't have that because I'd be moving all around. I'll get the wires caught in something, and it would be worse." So that orthopedic doctor says, "Well, I could do it in the office. I could reduce it and put it in place in the office. And I said, well, okay. And so he gave me a shot, which didn't touch me. I almost put my foot through the wall. It was so painful, but I don't have any wires. I don't have any pins inside there, but I have a good pain threshold. But anyway, I have sometimes, things that happen to me that I can help other people with and empathize with. I just got over shingles. I had to reschedule a lot of things. Shingles is very painful. And so if you haven't got your vaccine for it, it's 97% effective. Get it.
No kidding. No
Yeah.
kidding. I got it as soon as I could because I saw my husband go through shingles and he was in so much pain. He was just miserable. And so as soon as I turned an age where I could get it, I got it right away. So yes, get your shingles vaccine for sure. You don't
Yeah.
want shingles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awful.
Good,
Yeah.
good for you. And as a nurse, I would, say, get your flu shot and, the things that are going to help support your immune system. I just didn't get it in time, Kim. And I was like kicking myself. I was like, oh my God. But I was in so much pain, a side story, but I also am trying to be very independent and that can backfire in some ways. And I was in such incredible pain. I just couldn't believe it. So I was texting a friend of mine, which lives down the street. So we're kind of more casual neighbors. But she was so nice to me. I was just telling her I was having a bad day, and she goes, "You want me to come over?" And I said, "No, I'll be okay." Next thing I know, like an hour, she comes with flowers, and I made her some coffee. And I was like in tears with almost, the pain I was in, but I was also in tears because I allowed myself to be vulnerable. I said, look, the house is a mess. I haven't, been, keeping it up because it's just painful to like move with this. But I think that that's one thing about illness is we are vulnerable. And accepting, like accepting help is part of the journey too, because it connects us, and it helps us move forward. And I think the whole thing with midlife and beyond it bumps up all the changes that can happen. There can be health changes, we can, get disease, disability, divorce. So there's a lot of things that can happen. But when you feel vulnerable, it's so nice when other people reach out and allowing other people to help you. I think that's kind of like the spirituality part of being a nurse, being a coach, but just being a human is, caring about others. And so that vulnerability was like kind of reminder again, like you say, that God kind of nudges you. And it was like, oh yeah, sometimes I try to be too independent. I try, it's, yeah,
Yeah, well, and it's humbling. It's humbling to take help
humbling.
because man, we can do it. I can
Hmm.
do anything. You can do anything. Like we don't need the help.
Hmm.
And sometimes you do need the help, and it's okay to say yes if people offer. Take them at
Yeah.
their word. If they say, "Hey, what can I do to help you?" Tell them what they can do to help you. Let people in. Let them
Yeah.
in.
I mean, it's something that, I share with other people, but I got to take my own advice and say, that applies to me too. And my husband's mother, she has passed away now, wonderful lady, um, really just a loving lady. And the joke was that she had a serving plate, and the spoon and pot holders that she was born with, because she always had something in the oven. She was always had people coming over, and she was always doing for other people. And so she lived like almost to 100. But anyway, I think in 90s, she had a heart attack, and um, it happened during the nighttime, and she was like, well, I don't know what this is. I'll just wait till the morning. So she was kind of suffering in pain, didn't tell anybody about it. And in the morning she goes, well, I have this pain. So by waiting, she did a lot of damage occurred to her heart. So she had to have other people like help her. Oh my God, it was so difficult to watch her because she wanted to be serving. She was all about service. And and so I remember too, like the lesson was, allowing people to help her. But I think that's kind of something that's in all of us, and accepting that vulnerability, because it connects us and it helps us be resilient as a community, as people that are living in your house with you and your neighborhood. But anyway, that's a side story.
So true. Well, and we're all human. There are going to be times in our life that we need help.
Yeah.
And better to be part of a community, better to have friends than to
Mhm.
be alone and think you can do it all alone. It's okay to get help. It's such a blessing when people want to help you out, and it's a blessing to help other people out.
Yeah.
So if you say no, I don't need your help, even if you do, you're robbing somebody of a blessing.
Right, right. And that's the thing with the possibilities in midlife and beyond, because it builds friendships, it builds support, and people are not alone, and just it works out better for everyone. I mean, it goes back to, my roots of what my parents, told me, is to, care about other people, help each other out, and you do that, and life is better for everyone, is my thought on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then you got this passion not just about coaching and helping people, but a certain people group, right? People in midlife and kind of wondering what's the next thing for them, or a lot, like you said a little bit earlier, there's a lot of changes that can happen in midlife. So how did that all come about to be a passion for you?
Yeah. Um, well, the people that I took care of at the hospital were all midlife and beyond. And so I was very familiar with all of their physical ailments and how those physical ailments impacted them emotionally, spiritually, financially. And so I thought, well, I want to, help that group because I'm, familiar with that group. So I remember reading a book, was Too Young to Retire. It was about some people maybe want to retire, but what can you do, beyond that? Like, how can you see, like, when you, like, midlife is like 40 to 60 and maybe 75. We're living a lot longer. And I just read in the Washington Post yesterday where a person was 117, they live. So we're living long. Yeah. 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 So there's like super agers that they call them, the people that live, over 100. So that age span is increasing for middle age, but it's also a stage too where we say, okay, we lived this long, we got a career, we maybe climbed the ladder, we got married, maybe we have children, and we've made accomplishments. But now what is life about? We're launching our kids. And so that's when you start to kind of look inward of, all the knowledge and skills and abilities that you have, and think, what could I do with that? What do I want to do? What's important? So, like, looking at your values, because you may have had different values when you were younger, and are those the same values? And then, aligning them with like a vision. Well, how do I see myself living? And I like to think, and my colleagues who help write the book, Midlife, New Life, Living Consciously, and Midlife and Beyond, it's, all about being intentional, thinking it through. Maybe I didn't think through all these things, but now I'm going to think it through because this is it. I have one half of life left, and what am I going to do with it? And so you get the kind of the life you want, or you plan that, and it's a lot about contribution and, caring for others, because you've reached a point where you have a lot. Maybe you've accumulated a lot. Maybe you've accumulated money. Maybe you have possessions, but you also accumulated a lot of ideas and thoughts and connections. And, what could you do with them? How could you? And I don't necessarily like the word leverage, but that pops in my mind. But how could you leverage them, to help others, about contribution, and then, bringing in creativity? What do you what do you want to do? And so it's more about purpose and meaning. And, there's a very spiritual side of that. Then people, I remember in our book, we interviewed more than 50 people, and that was the most exciting thing because people shared from their personal experience. They shared their stories, they shared their wisdom, and that's all about what we think in the book is about connection, sharing the wisdom, sharing the story. So we help each other. And so people are interested about purpose and meaning. I mean, we have, stories of people that it didn't want to do their very lucrative job anymore. They want to do something that meant something to them. We had um, a fellow that wanted to start a radio station to help people in midlife and beyond and older, didn't know a thing about, running a radio station. Um, and so, he did some challenges with, financially to do this, to launch it, and then also learning about, what does it take to have a radio station and all of that. So there's really, interesting stories that I think are inspiring. Um, at least we had hoped we wrote the book to help inspire others and provide somewhat of a guide to help people in like 11 areas where they could, like maybe zoom in. We developed a conscious living wheel, had like 11 areas like purpose and career and work, creativity, technology, helping humanity. So they could, zoom in on that and say, oh, I want to focus on this, or, look at to see how they all interacted. But yeah, midlife is, I think, a wonderful time. It also can be difficult because all the changes, but there's there's a process to kind of go through the change, to adapt to it.
Yeah. Well, I love it that you focus on that because I've been talking to people lately who retirement, like the even the word retire, like I don't know, I'm at the end of the boomers, and the next ones that are ready to retire. And but the word itself doesn't sound so good. And when you do, when
Mhm,
you transition into that and you say I'm retired, you become very uninteresting to other people
mhm,
because you don't have a title anymore. You lost part of your identity when
mhm,
you left your job, or left your position, because before then you can be in conversation with somebody and they say, what do you do? Oh, well, I'm a CEO of a, or I'm a
yeah.
whatever it happens to be. But as soon as you say I'm retired, people just going, oh, okay, and walk away, and imagine you playing golf and living at the villages in Florida, or whatever. But
Mhm,
there's so much more that you can do. People have so much to offer. And it's our biggest brain bank are the people that are over 60 years old, right?
yes, yes.
Yeah. So to
Mhm,
tap into that and to respect it, I guess, to acknowledge it, to
mhm,
see it, because there's so much we can learn from people that are older than us at whatever age we are. There's
mhm.
so much we can learn from the people that are a step ahead. And so I love it. I love that this is what you focused on, to really give people a different look at what does midlife and beyond mean for you. What kind
Yeah.
of things should you be thinking about, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so good.
definitely. And there's that whole creativity part. And so everyone can contribute. I mean, the term volunteering is not as popular these days, civic engagement, but civic engagement can be anything you want it to be. It can be helping people develop a community garden. It can be developing a beehive, making those little book libraries that see in the neighborhood. Build if you're a woodworker, helping people develop for the schools, develop the props. I mean, there's so many things that if you have talents, you can share that, and you also get and receive a lot in return. Um, there's a friend of mine, a colleague, Dot Keenan, who loved older people, and didn't like sometimes the way that maybe, they would be looked upon because maybe they didn't think other people might think, well, they're, older, what can they contribute? But oh, so uh, inaccurate. And so she knew there's, schools where children are vulnerable. Maybe they need help with, their homework, or they need help with just giving them confidence. Oh, you can do that. Let's see how you do that. Or developing, friendships. And so she, suggested this program of people um, who were older, who wanted to offer their skills, their talents, their abilities to the schools that, had children that were vulnerable. And she called it Grand Involve, so that she started it just, I don't know, just like from an idea, and it grew and the interest grew. So it's very big in Fairfax County. It's gotten a lot of awards, but it's called Grand Involved, and people go to the schools and are present there to be, with the students. They can be a confidant, or, maybe something's happening, that they can, support them, help give them confidence, help them develop friendships, help them develop ways of coping with different things, helping them in school. So it's a really popular program, but that is just came from her heart. It came from, caring about others. And so there's a lot of things that people can do that's on a bigger scale, but you could do something, just taking people to the hospital or to their doctors and visit, because, at some point we'll be a care receiver in our lives. And so to be a caregiver, whether it's just taking, a drive and taking someone to the doctor, or getting groceries, or to the library, it can be very meaningful, to them and to you, that you've helped. You made a difference, and that's what the second half of life is about, making a difference. People want to make a difference, and it's exciting. And you certainly can have time to, have fun too. You can go on a trip. There's different places that can match you up with your abilities and skills. So if you didn't want to do something every week, you could do a project. It could be maybe for 2 weeks, or it could be for a week, or it could, you could, it doesn't have to be stuffing envelopes. It could be, whatever your skill is. So there's a lot in midlife, and also, being able to get through events, changes, adapting to.
Yeah. Yeah, which is so good and so true. And I love the way you're talking about that it can be anything. I think sometimes people think of volunteering, like you said, the word, means whatever to whoever, but that think of it as this huge commitment that every week you have to be there 6 hours a week, or whatever people envision. But it can be anything. Helping people can be anything, knowing that a neighbor needs some help with their lawn, maybe somebody broke a leg and can't mow their lawn, to go help and mow their lawn once a week, or whatever you can do for other people.
Mm.
One thing that I discovered years ago is that you can't outgive God. It's like it's impossible. I took my family to the Dominican Republic. My kids were younger, and we went to go help after a hurricane devastated the island. And I thought, well, I'm going there to help. I'm going there to give. I'm
Mhm,
going there to serve.
mhm,
And no matter how much serving I did, what I got in return was so much greater, just
mhm,
so much greater than I could ever pour out, than I could ever give.
mhm,
And so it's so healthy. It does so many wonderful things to you,
mhm,
physically, emotionally, spiritually, right? It does you so much good to go get out of yourself and go help other people. And I ended up discovering that years later, when my husband passed away, that service, I'd never heard this before, but I just found this to be true, is that service is the greatest healer of grief. It is the
mhm,
greatest healer of grief, to get outside of yourself and to go help other people. Like, you can't help but heal in a different way. And so it's a wonderful thing to serve, to go help. A lot of times it's just keeping your eyes open to
Mm,
possibilities of what
mhm,
you could do. I
mhm,
remember as a kid, I grew up, went to Catholic school too when I was younger, and we would go to called them the old folks homes back then, the nursing homes, you'd call it, whatever. And we'd go and sing, and we'd just go talk to people. And I loved it. I just
mhm,
loved it. I just loved meeting the people and getting to know the people. And even that is just incredible. There are some people that never get a visitor. So
mhm,
to go visit, check and see if you can, they're probably looking for people. Everybody's kind of looking for people. I don't think there's anybody that says, no, we have too many volunteers. We've got too many that want to serve. I don't think that's happening. So yeah, and to use your gifts while doing it, right? To
mhm,
use your creativity, use your gifts in your service. What is it that you love to do, and how can that serve people?
mhm. Yeah, the
Love it. I
enthusiasm
love it.
with that.
Yeah.
I have to quote you. Could I quote you on that? Service is the greatest healer. Because, thank you. People have things that happen to them, and um, they sometimes have difficulty with moving beyond it because they're looking at the closed door, they're inward focused. And it can be very difficult. There's like very devastating things that happened, but once you start doing something for someone else, your mind is out there and you're not on your own, problems. It's interesting. I used to volunteer for it's called Crisis Link, but it was a hotline for people that had problems. So I would, go there on Mondays and answer calls. And there was a woman that I worked with, and she had adopted a child that had special needs. And some of these calls that we had to take were like suicidal calls or something else was going on. But she told me that she decided to volunteer there because there was so much going on in her own life with her, the child she had adopted, that she wanted perspective. And so not only was, she helping others, but she was also getting, a different perspective. And I was so amazed by that because I thought, some of the things she told me were really challenging. And then I said, you're coming here. This is challenging also. But she says, I get so much out of it. She says, I literally get out of the feeling of overwhelm. And I thought, wow, that's amazing to me. Such a lovely, lovely person. But, that was she didn't say service, but it would help her. So yeah, I think, trying to get maybe someone to, look beyond themselves. It can be, a challenging, but it's also, something to try, um, for those things that happen, and, building, resilience, and building, community relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So well said. So people going into midlife or are in the middle of midlife, or, wherever they happen to be on that journey, what's some advice that you have for people?
Well, I guess to, reevaluate, what is important to you now. So we were looking at values, and then thinking about what you want to do. How do you want to live in the second half of life? So developing a vision. And then, in our book, we have the conscious living wheel. And so looking at, areas like, in relationships, what do I want to do in that area in the second half? Is there relationships I want to nurture? Is there people that I want to get closer to? That can even involve in, like, do I want to move as I get, older? Do I want to be near my grandchildren? They might be in the military, so there might be something else that you do. So look at all those areas like career, relationships, spirituality. How can I give of my gifts to help others? Financially, getting into maybe talking to a certified financial planner so that can help you. And we don't know how long we live. Look at the person who lived 117 years. So, helping with your financial, foundation. Um, in terms of, your career, do you want to be, paid or non-paid, and that civic engagement? There's a lot of areas. So looking at your values, refreshing them, looking at a vision, developing a support network is really important. And intergenerational is wonderful to keep ideas fresh and to help others and share wisdom. Um, and then, writing some of those things down and acting on them, and help, ask for help if you need it. As I say it myself, but yes, ask for help. If you need it, and build your support network and your community, and be there for others, help others. You can do little things in your community, and invite others a cookout. Um, so I think, values and vision, and, taking, each of those areas, and maybe doing a plan, and then, looking at it every 6 months. How is this working out for me? Do I want to, do anything different? Do I want to, what am I learning? What do I want to share? So, um, there's a lot that, you can do.
Yeah, yeah, so good. Such great advice. Such great advice. How can people work with you, or how can people contact you?
Oh, so I am on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I am on X, and my our book. I'm gonna show it here. Is it
Yeah,
okay to
please.
show?
Yeah, please do. Yeah,
So it's a Midlife, New Life, Living Conscious
great book.
in Midlife.
Yeah.
Beyond. Thank you. It's written by my two colleagues and I, Paul Ward and Sandy Demarest. I always want to give them credit because we are a great team, um, collaborators. So,
Yeah, and let me just interject
oh,
that I read the book and it really is fantastic. It makes you think of things, like it made me think of things that I never would have thought of, like on my own. So it's very thought provoking, and you realize the value. One of the things that I really got from it too is the value of connection. Like
yeah,
you're not alone in this world, and you don't have to be alone. And if you don't have friends, go find some, and different ways to go do that. And but connection with other people is so vital, so important to your overall well-being. But
absolutely.
great book, great book.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would always appreciate, and so my colleagues, if you write a review to share those positive words, it would be very much appreciated. Yeah, so if people want to go to the book's website, midlifenewlife.net, they can download a chapter. They can download all those thoughtful questions on every single chapter. And they can go to passagewayscoaching.net. I have handouts there as well. It's on Amazon. So there's a lot in it. There's a lot of resources in it. There's a lot about lifelong learning. So you can take classes. You can learn how to do different things. Connect with people there. Share what you learn. So there's ways to connect. The ways to use your creativity, and it's, I don't know, all those C's, caring, connection, contribution.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. All of those. So yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it. This was great, great talking to you. I've been looking forward to talking to you, and I just admire you. I admire what you do for people, how you just live to serve. I just love that. I love your heart. I love your spirit. You're just so giving.
Well,
So thank you.
thank you, Kim. Thank you for having me as your guest. I enjoyed the conversation, a heartfelt conversation. I think we're similar, focused on others and caring and service. Certainly, with all the work you've done in Haiti and all the things that you've experienced. I mean, you have a lot to give, and you continue to give, and globally too, with your talk to United Nations. That was pretty amazing. So thank you also, and it's been a nice chat with you, and I hope we can continue to be connected.
Oh, 100%. Let's stay connected for sure, for sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And thank you all for being with us today. And if you know somebody that this episode could help, please pass it on. Let people know about it because Eileen's just incredible. And buy the book, buy it for people that you know, not just for yourself, but who do you know that is wondering what to do in the next chapter of life, or somebody that needs to plan for it, or somebody that's in the midst of it and wondering what to do, floundering a bit, or whatever. There's so many people that this would be such a great book for. It's so easy to send a book. You go on Amazon. You don't have to go to the post office. You don't have to do anything. You just enter their address and you send it. And what a lovely thing to get in the mail, to get a book in the mail from somebody that is, there's some service for you. I mean, that's a beautiful thing to do. And this book will help the people that you send it to. So don't get just one for yourself, order more than that. But thanks for joining us today. And I just pray that until we see each other again, that you keep your heart open and you live your love loud.